Here's a question that might bother you for the rest of today. What if the thing holding your life back isn't bad luck, isn't the economy, isn't your past, but a handful of patterns you keep choosing every single day? Not because you're broken, not because you lack intelligence, but because nobody ever showed you how to see them clearly enough to stop. That's what today is about. The Stoics believed that most human suffering isn't handed to us. It's built, brick by brick, decision by decision, reaction by reaction. And the moment a person learns to see their own patterns with clear eyes, everything changes. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might be the most uncomfortable and most important thing you watch this week. The first pattern, the addiction to being right. There are people walking through life like they've already passed a final exam, confident, closed, completely certain that their version of reality is the correct one. I used to know a guy like that. Sharp guy, funny, decent at his job. But the moment anyone challenged one of his ideas, something changed in his eyes. You could see the shutters come down. He wasn't processing what they said. He was already building his counterargument. He thought that was strength. It wasn't. It was a cage. Because here's the thing most people never realize. The stronger your need to win every single argument, the smaller your world becomes. You stop absorbing new information. You stop learning from people around you. And eventually, you stop growing, while life keeps moving forward without you. Epictetus put it plainly. He said you cannot learn what you already believe you know. Certainty closes the mind the same way a fist closes around water. The tighter you squeeze, the less you actually hold. The wisest people I've ever met share one quiet trait. They're genuinely comfortable saying, "I hadn't thought of it that way." Not because they're weak, because they understand that reality is more valuable than their ego. So here's a simple practice. The next time someone corrects you or disagrees with you, before you respond, just ask yourself one question. Do I want to win this moment, or do I actually want to get smarter? Because those two paths almost never lead to the same place. The second pattern, repeating the same loop and calling it life. You know what's wild? Most people don't actually have new problems. They have the same 3 or 4 problems wearing different faces. New job, same conflict with authority. New relationship, same argument on repeat. New year, same broken January promise. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern that hasn't been examined yet. Marcus Aurelius wrote that suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from how we consistently choose to respond. Read that again. Consistently choose, not react. Choose. I had a friend in my late 20s. Good person, chaotic life. Every 6 months there was some new disaster, a falling out with someone close, a financial mess, a job he quit or got let go from. And every time, same story. I don't understand why this keeps happening to me. But I watched closely, and it wasn't happening to him. He was recreating it. Same avoidance patterns, same emotional spending when stressed, same habit of letting small problems fester until they exploded. He wasn't cursed, he was just stuck in a loop he never stopped to study. Here's the Stoic truth about repeated pain. If you don't extract the lesson from a situation, that situation simply cues up again, louder this time, more disruptive, more expensive. So here's a short exercise, 3 brutally honest questions. Ask yourself this week, what situation keeps showing up in different forms in my life?
What emotion or belief is driving my behavior when it does? And what is the smallest shift I could make, not tomorrow, right now, that would break the loop? You are not a victim of your patterns. You are the author of them. And anything you've written, you can rewrite.
The third pattern, letting your emotions make your decisions. Reactive people think they're being honest. They're not. They're being impulsive, and there's a massive difference. Think about the last time you said something in anger you later regretted, or sent a message when you were hurt that you wish you could take back, or made a decision out of fear that cost you something real. That's not honesty. That's handing the controls of your life to an emotion that'll be gone in 20 minutes. Marcus Aurelius had a line that I think about a lot. He wrote that you don't have to turn everything into a problem. You don't have to let it shake you. The word that matters is let, because emotions don't storm in uninvited. Somewhere, at some level, we allow them to take the wheel. I once worked alongside someone who was genuinely talented, bright, creative, but emotionally he was a live wire. One ambiguous email from leadership and he'd spend the next 2 hours catastrophizing. One piece of critical feedback and he'd go cold and defensive for the rest of the day. His ability was never in question. His stability was. And over time, people stopped bringing him the opportunities that required someone steady, not because of what he could do, but because of how he reacted under pressure. The Stoic approach isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about creating a gap between the feeling and the response, a pause, even a breath, just enough space to choose who you want to be in that moment. Here's a 3-step practice when you feel the emotional charge rising. 1. Stop. Don't speak, don't text, don't move. Just pause. 2. Breathe. Slow breath in, longer breath out. It physically shifts your nervous system. 3. Ask the grounding question. What would the most composed, intentional version of me do right now? Your emotions are real. They deserve to be felt, but they don't deserve to be in charge. You do. The 4th pattern, outsourcing responsibility for your life. Blame is a fascinating thing. It feels productive. It feels like justice. It gives your frustration somewhere to land, but it doesn't actually move you an inch forward. Here's the mechanics of it. Every time you make someone else responsible for where you are, you hand them the power to determine where you're going. Think about that. You're essentially telling yourself, my future is in their hands, not mine. Epictetus, who was literally born into slavery, understood this better than most. He taught that freedom isn't about your external circumstances. It's about what you refuse to blame those circumstances for. The moment you stop waiting for someone to fix what only you can fix, something in you wakes up. I've watched this play out in real time. Someone loses a job and spends 6 months building a detailed case for why the company was wrong, the boss was incompetent, the system was rigged. Maybe all of that is true. Probably some of it is. But here's the question that actually matters. What part of this am I in a position to change? That question is uncomfortable, which is exactly why most people avoid it. Taking responsibility isn't about self-punishment. It's not about pretending you had control over everything that happened. It's about locating the part you can actually do something about and focusing there. A 3-step reset for this week. 1. Name your part honestly. Not everything, just your part. 2. Decide on one specific thing you'll do differently. Not 10 things, 1. 3. Let go of what you cannot control. No more replaying the injustice. No more building the case. Just
forward. Blame keeps you in the past, responsibility lives in the present, and your future only gets built from here.
The fifth pattern: performing ambition instead of executing it. There's a certain type of person who is absolutely incredible at launching things. The announcement, the vision board, the group chat message at midnight that says, "Okay, I'm actually doing this." The Instagram story with the motivational quote captioned "New Chapter." And then, nothing. Because the announcement gave them the feeling of progress without any of the actual work. The brain doesn't distinguish that easily between achieving something and merely talking about achieving something. Announce the goal publicly and you get a little hit of recognition, a little dopamine, and that tiny reward becomes the whole thing. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." In other words, the life you live is your only real statement. Everything else is just noise. I had someone in my life for a few years who I genuinely believed in. Smart, visionary, but every January he'd lay out this elaborate plan. New business idea, new fitness routine, new financial discipline. Every detail thought out. And every February, radio silence. By March, he was back to talking about next year. The plan wasn't the problem. The need for an audience was. The people who actually build things, real things that last, almost never announce in advance. They're too busy working. You find out what they did after they've already done it. Here's a practice called the ugly first step. When you want to start something, don't plan it for next week. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just do the ugliest, smallest, messiest version of it right now. Write one bad paragraph. Do 5 push-ups. Put $20 in savings. Send 1 email. Because momentum isn't built by intentions. It's built by showing up when it's inconvenient, imperfect, and not worth posting about. Your future won't be built by what you announce. It'll be built by what you do, quietly, consistently, and without an audience. The sixth pattern: staying in circles that are slowly shrinking you. The people you spend the most time with are not just company. They are curriculum. They are teaching you what's normal, what to expect from life, what you're worth, what's acceptable, what to settle for. And most people have never stopped to audit that curriculum. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What he understood, and what most people miss, is that your thoughts don't originate in isolation. They come from your environment. They come from the conversations you have every day. The people who shape those conversations shape you. I watched this happen slowly with someone I used to be close to. Genuinely talented guy. Years ago, he had this energy, curious, driven, a little restless in the best way. But his circle was pulling in a different direction. Not bad people, just stuck people. People who'd given up on their own growth and started resenting anyone who hadn't. A year or two in, you could see the shift. Smaller jokes, smaller goals, smaller version of himself. He hadn't failed at anything. He just marinated in an environment that made small normal. Here's the thing about wrong circles. They rarely announce themselves. They shrink you gradually, conversation by conversation, compromise by compromise, until one day your standards are just lower. And you don't even notice because everyone around you shares the new standard. 5 honest questions worth sitting with. Who in my life consistently drains my energy? Who responds to my wins with silence or skepticism? Who has a reason ready for why I shouldn't try? Who makes me smaller in conversation rather than larger?
and who would be most comfortable if I stayed exactly where I am. You don't rise by accumulating more people. You rise by being intentional about who shapes you. Growth requires subtraction sometimes, and the most important thing you can protect is not your time or your money. It's your standards. Because your environment will either sharpen you or quietly rust you. And either way, it happens slowly enough that you often don't notice until significant damage is done.
The seventh pattern: refusing to learn from what breaks you. Failure is not the problem. Failure without reflection is. Think about the people you've watched rebuild themselves after something fell apart. A lost job, a painful breakup, a financial disaster. The ones who came out of it better weren't the ones who suffered least. They were the ones who stayed curious about it longest. They asked hard questions. They sat with uncomfortable answers. They found the lesson before they closed the chapter. Seneca wrote that suffering only becomes unbearable when you refuse to extract meaning from it. For the Stoics, failure wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was information, raw data about your blind spots, your habits, your patterns. But most people treat failure like a verdict, like a judgment on who they are, so they bury it, deflect it, rationalize it, blame it on someone else, and then repeat it. Because what you don't examine, you recreate. Look at your own history for a second. How many times has a relationship ended in roughly the same way? How many times has a job, a friendship, a financial situation collapsed for reasons that felt different on the surface but shared the same root? That's not coincidence. That's an unread lesson. Here's a method I'd encourage you to try. Call it the 72-hour autopsy. The next time something goes sideways, don't spiral, don't numb out, don't rush to assign blame. Just give yourself 72 hours for the emotional heat to settle. Then sit down and ask 3 questions. 1. What actually happened? Not the story, not the drama, the facts. 2. What belief or habit of mine contributed to this outcome? 3. What is the one smallest change that would make this less likely to repeat? That's it. No grand transformation, just one honest conversation with yourself after the storm. You can't control whether life tests you, but you absolutely control whether you become better because of it. Failure doesn't end careers, relationships, or potential. The refusal to learn from it does. If you've stayed this long, you already know something important about yourself. You're not someone who runs from hard truths, and that, more than talent, more than luck, more than circumstance, is what actually determines where your life goes. The patterns we covered today aren't character flaws, they're habits, and habits can be changed, but only by the people willing to see them clearly enough to decide they're done with them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the hardest battle a person fights is the one inside themselves, against their own impulses, their own blind spots, their own comfortable patterns. And the fact that you're here, genuinely engaging with this, means you're willing to fight that battle. That is rare. Don't take it lightly. Pick one pattern from today, just one, the one that felt a little too familiar when you heard it, and commit to breaking it. Not loudly, not on social media, just quietly, consistently, and starting right now. If this hit home for you, drop a comment below and tell me which pattern resonated most. And if you know someone stuck in one of these cycles, share this with them. Sometimes the right video at the right moment changes everything. New videos go up every day here on Stoic Point. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Stay grounded, stay honest with yourself, and stay unshakable.